how do you make that transition, from mining in one place to the next?
Parker Schnabel is rewriting the gold mining rulebook. He's going after the legendary $84 million said to be inside the infamous Widow's Cut, a mine so unstable it's basically off-limits. You won't believe his method. Instead of just brute force, he deployed advanced drone mapping and LiDAR scanners to look beneath the frozen ground. The data uncovered a secret, a collapsed shaft. This was a terrifying, perfect path to a massive gold vein nobody knew existed, the land that time forgot. In Klondike gold mining, there are spots on the map that even the bravest crews won't touch. Legends get attached to them, stories of failure and danger that become part of the land itself. One such place was a piece of ground so notoriously difficult, so utterly unforgiving, that it earned the chilling name, the Widow's Cut. For generations, it was considered off-limits, a mission doomed from the start. It's funny when you think about it, but the belief that this area was impossible to mine wasn't just superstition. It was based on cold, hard, and literally frozen facts. The ground at the Widow's Cut is locked in the grip of deep permafrost. This isn't just frozen dirt you can break through with a pickaxe. We're talking about ground that has been frozen solid, as hard as concrete, for thousands of years. It's a complex mixture of soil, rock, and ancient ice. Trying to dig into it is like trying to excavate a solid block of steel-reinforced cement.
Let's make it happen.
Parker leads from the front in his 73-ton D10 dozer.
The energy costs alone are astronomical. Any attempt to carve out a shaft or ramp is met with incredible resistance, and that's not even the biggest problem. The real terror of permafrost is its instability. As an excavator claws at the frozen earth, the heat from the engine and the friction from the digging can begin to thaw the surrounding ground. This doesn't make it softer, it makes it dangerously unpredictable. Imagine multi-ton chunks of frozen earth and rock, held together by ancient ice, suddenly losing their structural integrity. The result is a catastrophic collapse, a sudden violent implosion that can bury millions of dollars of equipment and anyone unlucky enough to be nearby in an instant. It's a geological booby trap, and for decades, nobody had figured out how to disarm it. But wait, it gets worse. Beyond the risk of collapse, there was the ever-present threat of massive flooding. Deep within the permafrost, pockets of water and underground springs are trapped under immense pressure. Puncturing one of these is like popping a high-pressure balloon. Water can gush into a mine shaft, turning the floor into a slushy, unstable mess and potentially flooding the entire operation in minutes.
The season's starting to wind down to a close. It's been difficult. We're well behind this season right now. It's a struggle.
With water compromising the shaft walls and threatening to destroy heavy machinery, the financial risk was simply too great for most. Previous attempts by other mining outfits to tackle the Widow's Cut had all ended in failure. They left behind broken equipment, massive financial losses, and a reinforced legend that the ground was cursed. The whispers grew louder. The gold here was guarded by the land itself, and it would never let it go. Faced with these life-altering factors, it would have been the easiest thing in the world for Parker and his crew to just walk away. The legends promised a king's ransom in gold, but surely no amount of treasure was worth betting the entire operation, not to mention their safety. But that's not how Parker Schnabel operates. Where others saw an unbeatable obstacle, Parker saw an opportunity. He saw a challenge that, if conquered, would put him in a league of his own. He wasn't just going to try. He was going to find a way down into that frozen labyrinth, one way or another. The crew would need more than just guts. They'd need a technological miracle. A secret revealed by lasers. Faced with a seemingly impossible challenge, Parker decided to fight back not with more brute force, but with brains and high-tech eyes in the sky. It was a move that would lead to a breakthrough nobody saw coming. The thing is, accepting a challenge doesn't make it any easier. So, what could? Modern technology.
For acquiring LiDAR data over broad areas.
Beyond their usual arsenal of excavators and wash plants, Parker's crew had a few secret weapons at their disposal. Tools that could survey the land in ways the old-timers of the Klondike Gold Rush could only have dreamed of. And that's exactly what they did. The initial plan was the old-school approach. dig a brand new ramp down into the pay dirt. But the permafrost made that plan a recipe for disaster. It would be too dangerous, too expensive, and most importantly, too slow. Every day spent fighting the frozen ground was a day they weren't pulling gold. The fuel costs, the wages, the wear and tear on the machines, it was all adding up. They were burning through their season's budget on an endeavor that hadn't produced a single ounce of gold. If they didn't want to end the season with a catastrophic loss, they had to get smart, and they had to do it fast. This is where the game completely changed. The crew deployed their state-of-the-art LiDAR system.
LiDAR, light detection and ranging. LiDAR is a remote sensing method that uses laser to measure elevation like ground, forest, and buildings.
Most people don't realize how revolutionary this technology is for modern mining. LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, is the same kind of tech used in self-driving cars to build a real-time map of the world. The system shoots out millions of laser pulses per second, which bounce off the ground and return to a sensor. By measuring the time it takes for each pulse to return, it creates an incredibly detailed three-dimensional map of the terrain with centimeter-level accuracy. They paired this powerful tool with advanced drone mapping. By flying a drone in a precise grid pattern over the Widow's Cut, they could use the LiDAR to peer right through the thick trees and overgrowth that had covered the area for decades. The lasers ignored the vegetation and mapped the true shape of the ground beneath. When they stitched all this data together, it revealed something incredible, something hidden from plain sight for generations. The lasers had uncovered a secret that had been lost to time. A collapsed vertical shaft from the original mining operation, completely hidden from view. Their precise measurements showed that this forgotten shaft was over 40 meters deep. That's more than 130 feet straight down into the earth. This was the eureka moment. Instead of waging an all-out war against the permafrost to dig a new entrance, they could use this old, collapsed one. It was their secret back door, a direct route to the heart of the treasure. It was still an incredibly intimidating prospect, but it was a calculated risk, not a blind one. They finally had a plan that might actually work. Finding the path was one thing, but going down it was another story. The $10 million cleanup. The discovery of the hidden shaft sent a jolt of energy through the entire crew. After weeks of frustration staring at an impossible problem, they finally had a viable path forward. But this was no easy walk in the park. The shaft was collapsed, unstable, and a straight drop into darkness. Their first job was to make it safe enough to descend. It was a terrifying prospect that required surgical precision and heavy-duty engineering. Using their heavy machinery, they carefully excavated the debris clogging the entrance. Then came the most critical part: stabilization. They brought in massive reinforced steel beams and, piece by painstaking piece, began constructing a support structure inside the shaft. It was slow, nerve-wracking work. Every scoop of dirt, every beam set in place, carried the risk of triggering a further collapse. But Parker's expert crew, working with a level of focus that only comes when the stakes are this high, managed to create a secure pathway. They had tamed the beast, creating a cage of steel that would hold the treacherous earth at bay. They were ready to go down. What they found at the bottom was breathtaking. It was the stuff of mining legend. After breaking through the final layer of debris, they entered a chamber that had been sealed off for decades. And there it was. Not just flakes of gold in the dirt, but an untouched, quartz-rich gold vein glittering in the beam of their flashlights. For those unfamiliar, most Klondike operations are placer mines, searching for loose gold flakes that have eroded from their source. Finding the source itself, a hard rock vein, is the ultimate jackpot. A geologist on site described it as the cleanest and richest natural deposit he had ever seen. The sight of that glittering vein triggered an almost frantic sense of urgency. They knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, and they couldn't waste a second. Word travels fast in the Klondike, and they didn't want whispers of their find attracting unwanted attention or claim jumpers. With a determined mindset, the team worked relentlessly around the clock, fueled by adrenaline and the promise of a massive payday. And here's where it gets absolutely wild. Their relentless effort paid off in a way that shattered all expectations. In just over 72 hours, 3 days of non-stop grueling work, they extracted more than 4,000 ounces of gold from that single vein. When they did the math, The value was staggering, over $10 million. That one haul was enough to cover their operating costs for most of the season, with millions to spare. It was a powerful, almost life-changing moment for the team. This single cleanup had turned a season on the brink of failure into a massive success. But this incredible score was just the beginning. The mine had an even bigger secret: the Klondike Gold Rush 2.0. The $10 million score was a season saver, but an even bigger, more unbelievable treasure was still lurking just a little deeper in the earth. After the initial excitement, the team did a careful examination of the gold and the geology of the vein. What they realized sent shockwaves through the camp. The vein was far larger, far more extensive than they had initially thought. Based on its thickness and some quick geological projections, the team figured it likely extended for another 1.25 miles further underground. This is where the numbers get truly insane.
I started my life here, and my goal is to see if there's a lot better ground out there that we could be mining.
Doing some more calculations, taking into account the richness of the pay dirt they had already processed and the immense potential size of the vein, the team came up with an almost unbelievable figure. They were potentially sitting on top of another $75 million worth of gold. Add that to the $10 million they already had, and you get an $84 million treasure. If they could pull this off, it wouldn't just be a successful season. It would be the single most successful season in the history of Gold Rush. Suddenly, everything changes. The pressure on Parker's shoulders doubled. With more money and more attention come more problems. Everyone in the Yukon was watching, and they weren't just watching, they were talking. Whispers started flying. Was this really the biggest gold strike of the 21st century? Had Parker just rewritten the rules of the game? The questions came fast. Would this huge strike give Parker even more power in the mining world? Could he even handle the pressure of managing a site this massive? This is the part of the story where you have to take a step back and wonder. It's easy to see the headlines and think Parker Schnabel just got lucky, that he stumbled onto a fortune overnight. But is it ever that simple? The thing is, we see the triumph, but we don't see the years of grinding it out, the failed prospects, the machinery breakdowns in the bitter cold. We don't see the sleepless nights spent worrying about fuel bills and making payroll. You have to wonder, are we missing a key detail in this narrative? A discovery this big feels like it changes all the rules. Did his high-tech gear really do all the work? Or was there an element of pure gut instinct involved that we can't measure? This wasn't just gold anymore. This was a fundamental shift in power. This was history in the making. Parker wasn't scared. He was focused. This was the moment he had been working toward for years, ever since he took over his grandpa John's operation. He wasn't going to let it slip away. But you have to imagine the weight of it all. This discovery could change the entire economy of the Klondike. Land prices could skyrocket. New prospectors might flood the region, hoping to find their own jackpot. It's like throwing a boulder into a still lake. The ripples were going to spread far and wide. Parker Schnabel's massive gamble paid off, turning a geological nightmare into a legendary jackpot. But with a discovery this big, attracting this much attention, has he just invited a new, more dangerous kind of rival? What do you think? Was this luck, skill, or something else? Let us know below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.